the Oakland Planning Commission voted unanimously to send the EIR recommended for certification with the Oakland City Council. Lots of words there. How encouraged are you with the progress right now?
Oh, very much so. I mean, I think it's a really important step. The fact that it was a unanimous vote. I think also the comments of the commissioners where they said that this EIR was one of the most robust and comprehensive and thoughtful documents they'd ever seen in their career. I think that says a lot about everyone who's worked on this project for the last 5 years. And I think that positions us well for a positive outcome with the city council next month.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny. The chair, Clark Manis, said at the end, you have work to do, Dave, but it seems like you've already been doing a lot of work. So what is exactly next? What is the most important piece of work you have to do?
Well, we need to hammer out an economic deal with the city. We have gotten them, comments on everything they've sent us. We're still waiting on an infrastructure and financing exhibit, which is kind of the key piece of the development agreement. And so we're working weekly with their negotiating team, our negotiating team. We're talking about scores of people, really focused on getting this over the finish line. And so we're doing everything we can to do that.
Yeah, because that'd be my next big question is development agreement. What exactly does it take? And so you're saying that a lot of the infrastructure costs, they're still trying to figure out exactly how to hammer those out?
Yeah, and how the county folds into it. The county took a directional vote, but I think the city's been working, and I know very hard with the county to ensure that they actually sign on the dotted line, that it becomes binding. Because everything we're doing now, it started yesterday with that vote. I mean, that's basically a binding recommendation. You can't go back from that. And we need that. We need that assurance that this is a real thing, that it's not just like maybe it's going to happen, that it can happen before we put out all this private capital. And so it's about herding all those cats, getting all those final agreements in place, all the definitive documents. And that's what the next 3 or 4 months are about.
So presuming they do take up this EIR for final certification mid-February is kind of what we're hearing. If that happens mid-February, how quickly do you think it could get to the phase of binding votes? I know that it would be very encouraging to get that all done before the end of the year.
Well, certainly we'd have a binding vote on the EIR in February if they chose to certify it next month. That'd be incredible. That'd be a huge accomplishment for everyone. And then we would hope within a month of that, we could take the actual development agreement and the general plan amendment and some of the other zoning documents to the planning commission and then the city council. So we have a schedule that we've been working on with the city. They have not agreed to the schedule. We would like this to have a final vote before midway through the year, like by the summer at the absolute latest, because we really are running out of time in our current facility. We have a parallel path going in Las Vegas that we're making serious progress on. And we really owe it to MLB, our players, our fans, everyone associated with this effort to really end this 25-year saga and really have a solution and a new ballpark for the A's.
When we talk about timelines and getting something, I know we need to get you guys out of the Coliseum as soon as possible. But when I look at the timeline, one thing I think people aren't talking about a whole lot is there are elections coming up in Oakland, and the mayor is going to be one of those things. Libby Schaaf is not going to be able to run anymore. She's finished with her term. So how much does getting something done kind of ahead of those November elections factor into all of this? Because I could imagine that would create a little bit of turmoil in terms of just everything going on.
Well, we don't want this to be an election issue in the fall. That's why we want the binding votes by the summer, so that it doesn't actually bleed into the campaign. And that's something that we've been really agitating for with the political leadership in Oakland and the county. And we're hopeful that that's resonating and we can get to an answer as soon as possible.
Now, I want to switch gears a little bit. Now, there are some variants in the project. My favorite variant is the gondola variant, but I'm not going to ask about that this time. The peaker plant variant is kind of interesting because it would change some things in terms of the cosmetic and the way you would walk up to Howard Terminal. So is that a situation where you have to purchase said peaker plant? Are there offers in on that? What is kind of going on with the peaker plant variant?
Well, that's one of the important options for the project. And we've been working with Vistra, who owns the power plant. They are in the process, and we've been working with them to convert it to a battery storage facility as opposed to a polluting power plant. So I think that's a really positive attribute of the project. And once we get these final approvals, then we can actually move forward and purchase that piece of land and property, because then we would know. We don't want to just own a power plant, and not get the project approved. That would be kind of silly. So that's not in my portfolio of things. I'd rather have a player that we get than a power plant. So we have to be smart about the timing of it, and that's kind of the place we sit in right now.
Okay, got it. So that does make sense. I mean, right now it's sitting there, it's like a jet fuel burning plant, which isn't really great. And that is really used for peak power. When the power is overriding the grid, they use that to gain extra power for the city.
Yeah, they light it up in the late afternoon. You know, I've had to become an expert in things that like I never thought I'd know anything about. They have two Boeing 707 engines in there, and a huge jet fuel drum. And they just basically light those things up when they need the power for the East Bay. And so you can use batteries these days to do the same thing, and it's a lot more environmentally friendly. And it's a nice thing to have as part of our project, which is great.
And the batteries would take up far less space. And that's kind of just explaining all this just helps the viewers, because they see peaker plant, they don't really understand what that means.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for that. Now, when we get into something really interesting here, I actually heard shovel talk in this most recent meeting, and that's an exciting thing, because everyone, you know, I'm always talking about this and reporting on it. Everyone's like, oh, winter shovels. And I'm sure you hear that all the time too. But I thought it was interesting that it was Commissioner Rank that brought up, you know, when can the shovels come out?
A year from the binding votes. And the binding votes, you know, there's the City Council, the Port, BCBC, and state lands. So those are like the four. I mean, they can all happen basically around the same time. Hopefully that happen by the summer at the latest. And then you're going to have litigation after that, most likely. Kind of like the Warriors have that at Chase Center. You know, they have that at Golden One Center for the Sacramento Kings. And that's going to take probably 9 months to a year to adjudicate those things. We had AB 734, which was the legislation got passed in 2018 that gives us a 270-day judicial review. And that gives us some certainty around the timeline so we can have a better sense of when you could break ground, Casey.
So if you get binding votes, the final binding votes before the end of the year, you could possibly break ground 2023. When do you anticipate the ballpark could open then? If it's 2023, could you get it by 2026, or would it be more 2027?
Some of it still has to get determined in the agreement with the city, because they're leading all the offsite infrastructure. And so we do not have a timeline from them when that is going to be done or even commenced. And we can't open the stadium until some of those things are complete. And because those are some of the mitigations or, you know, some of the things we need to have to make the stadium operate effectively. And so I think that's one of the outstanding items that hopefully will get wrapped up in the next couple months when we negotiate the development agreement.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then lastly, before I let you go, we do this every time. The answers vary, but what mile are we at in this marathon, Dave? Full marathon?
Well, you know, it's been 5 years of hard work by the city, by the A staff, by Major League Baseball, by everyone associated with this project to get to this point. You know, the fact that we're actually taking binding votes now is a major accomplishment. The fact that we have an EIR that's so positively put together and been positively received by the experts, the commission, I think we're in a very good spot. And so I think we're in that last quarter of the race, and hopefully we can get this thing in front of the council and it doesn't get derailed by politics, and we can get binding votes over the next 3 to 4 months, because like you said earlier, it's an election year and we don't want to slide into the election cycle.
Yeah, that's very encouraging. I feel like each time we talk now, it's following a very positive step. And I feel like each time we talk now, we're reaching uncharted territory in this stadium search. So hopefully it just keeps on plugging along. Thank you very much, Dave.
Thanks so much for having me, Casey. Take care, man.